Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing this morning? Okay, today is July 3rd, and I didn't even realize today was the day that the July 4th celebration would be. However, I'm ready. And even though I normally try not to do anything on a holiday celebration, I try to just let you hang with family. I thought it would be a good day to discuss kin. I just felt that that was just a good segue into your weekend to do for you to do some mindfulness, some soulfulness, and understanding the connection of kinship and kin. And so that's what I thought I would do for today. Starting out, I said I was going to go back, and I think this is my 60th video since I started with this challenge back in April, and it's been a good fit for me. I'm getting some good feedback from it. I love doing it, and I started off talking about the multiple intelligences, which is I still need you to try to get in touch with that, and you can all hit me up for that. If you want to do the test to find out where some of your gifts are, where your talent is, where your the kind of jobs that suit your personality. Some of us don't even know that. We're working in the wrong areas for a long time. But I also tried to look at the whole concept of don't look back. You can't change what's in your rear. You can change what you're going forward into. And that is what I stand on when I say, are you stuck? Because are you stuck has this tendency to say, I can't move much beyond where I am in this particular situation for this area. I'm up there on everything else. I'm forward on everything else. But this particular problem has me stilled, has me paused, has me troubled, has me concerned. And so that's what we're going to talk about as we keep going forward is all the things that just hold us down. But I was looking at some of the things that I've discussed since I started. I talked about having things in your basement and not going back to get them or leaving them on the steps, and understanding that when you go down to the basement, the intention is to clear out, to clean it up, so when you come up you can look back and all that's cleared out, you're done with it. But I've also talked about trust, happy, your goals, your honesty, your birth, your dare, your rush, your rise. I loved your rise. The unknown, the care, the try, because we do need to try things. The form that we have when we're addressing stuff, the me, just me. Who am I? The heal, the love, the hope, the head, the power, the loss, the gain, the faith. It talks about, I've dealt with the pay, the use, the fate, the father. I did the mother too. The wise, the plain, the money, the stand, the endure, the joy, the way, the forgive. And today is the kin. So I've really tried to touch on some of everything that may help you get down to the me that you are, the ownership, the fact that I am who I am and I can stand on it. I've been through what I've been through, but I've come up as a believer that I can do better, or I can change some things, or I can make myself the self I want to be, not the self other people want me to be. So anyway, those are all the things that we certainly have covered in our travel together so far. And so I'm going to ask you this question: are you stuck? Periodically, yes, we're going to get stuck. All of us, no matter who we are. We're all going to be faced with the problem. We're all going to be faced with something that becomes of great concern. It may have trouble in it. It may have pain in it. It may have happiness in it, okay? But we still may be stuck as to whether that is our happy. Do we want to go that way? That's a stuck. That could be a stuck. It's a good stuck, but it's still stuck. So anyway, I'm going to start off with some poems, and I found two. One, this first one is by Nicole C. Anderson, and it's real short. It says, I am the person I am today because all of the people who have shaped me are in every way. I am the person I am today because all the people who have shaped me in every way. That just says that's family. That's family. And sometimes when we talk about family or kin, as we're using it today, we don't always say that biologically we're connected, but there is a biological connection with many of the people that we call our friends. Good morning, Katrina. There's many people that we know to be our family. And sometimes we have a close friendship, familyship, loveship with family members, and sometimes we do not. The thing about family is that family, kin, really says you inherited them. They inherited you. Either you came before some of them or you came after some of them. But the inheritance is what, brought you together. Now, whether you stay together, because I've met several people, as I was talking about yesterday, who do not talk with their family members. They have no dealings with them at all. Because something happened. I don't know what it was. It could be that there was just misunderstanding, or maybe they felt no love or no kindness or no joy or no peace. Because I believe that sometimes you can live with family and have no peace. So once again, that connection of inheritance comes with maybe you all having the same bloodline, or you have the same parent, not parents, and sometimes that causes some separation. It just depends. All those things depend, but there is some form of inheritance that comes about there. So anyway, the next poem talks about family ties. It says, family ties are precious things, woven through the years of laughter, love, and tears. Family ties are cherished things, forged in childhood days by love of parents, deep and true, by tradition and by family ways. Family ties are treasured things, and far though we may roam, the tender bonds with those we love still pull our hearts toward home. The reason I chose that poem, and that poem is by Unknown. I chose that poem because it talks about the family where whatever they were raised with, this person is writing about the family that they stayed close to. The family, it stoked something in them. It raised the level of love that they always take with them, no matter where they go throughout their life. If it's overseas or if it's on the United States shores, it's someplace. Okay, it's someplace, wherever they are, that's where their family is. That's how I am. We came from a family of 10, and I always tell people I am the baby of 10. And I got to see some of everything, because when people are ahead of you, you get to see them. They may see you too, okay, but they look at you differently. Because my older siblings always thought I was spoiled. I wasn't. I was just in a position of I could see well. And so I didn't make all the same, what I would call the ripple effects that they did. I learned from them. And so for me, that was my family. And we were a blended family because my mother had been married 3 times. And I was born of the third father. And the other 2 sets, of which there was 1 and then 5, and then the last of us were the 4. So collectively, my mother and father never, even though my father was the only father I knew as being in our home, the other man that I did know as my other brothers and sisters' dad, was wonderful. Mr. Evans, he was a wonderful man, and he always was loving and kind and caring. My father passed away at a young age. So when we talked about kin, we were always kin. My mother never made a distinction about us being different and having different fathers. So that's how we were brought into the fold. We were brought into the fold that way. And so there was understanding, there was kindness, and we understood that was our mother's business. It wasn't ours. And she never painted the picture as if it was, something that we should be concerned with. We just had a good dad. They had a good dad at whatever their dad's level was for them. That was good. That was good. But in terms of the kin And the kinship, we were part of it. We were right there. We loved it. We loved it and still do today. My brother in California, I have a brother in California and a brother in New York. And they're both doing well. They are. They're doing very well. They're older. They're all older than I am. So, we're old. We're old, but we have longevity. So maybe we'll be around till we're 100 and can see a centennial year. But anyway, when we talk about kin, okay, we're talking about the family. It says it's one's family, one's relatives. It says it's the kindred in us, the kindredness of us. It's our connection. It's the bloodline. It's the kinfolk. It's the folks. It's the people. It's the close, and it's the allied. So that means you form together. And like I always remember coming up when they had the families that would feud. And it would always tickle me because the families that would feud, they were saying, oh, the Browns against the Joneses, Wow. That was just amazing to me. And I said, well, why would they be angry? They live right next door to each other, And if anything, they should form friendships. But they sometimes had fractions within their own families, and then the families would be against each other. So that was interesting to me. But when we get down and we break the word of kin down, we start with known. A kin is somebody you know. Okay. Now and I said you may or may not be close to them, but it says that a kin is something is known by recognition, familiarity, or within the scope of knowledge. You know something that is known about the family. It says you're familiar. They're well known. Sometimes they're studied. Sometimes you have to investigate them. But it's all about what is known as family. That is family. That is the kin, because they are known. And I'm quite sure you can speak to your own family. You can write it in the thread about how close you are. How close you are maybe with, and sometimes we end up being close to one or two more so than others. And it might be what impacts that is that there's distance, and even with, video chat or texting and all those kinds of things, there still may be not as close as you would be as if you lived in the same city or on the same street, or like some people, they live like in the same, house, very close, very, very close. But it talks about that they are known to you. You know who they are as members. The I is for incorporated. And usually when we think of incorporation, we think of, companies and all that kind of stuff. But generally, in order for a company to be incorporated, they have brought on some things. They've brought on people. They've made it work for them. And so it says it's to unite or work into something already in existence, as to form an indistinguishable an indistinguishable whole, meaning that's what it is. This is the Johnson family. This is the Gary family. This is the Petullo family. That is the family. That is the connection. And it says that usually when you have something that's been incorporated as in a family, it talks about the blend or the combined. It says, and it's usually a combination of thoroughness, to unite in or as a one body into this conglomerate. It said it's something's, and when someone's been incorporated, they've been absorbed. So when a new baby comes, that new baby is a part of the family it was born into. The parents bring it in, and then the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, so forth and so on. And there is a nest that everybody is a part of, under I would say the corporate umbrella name of whatever it was they were born into, the Brown family, whatever. And it says, and it's also incorporated as a form of assimilation, meaning that and to me, I always put assimilation and accommodation. If you think about accommodating, that means they've been brought into and accommodated to be a part of, and they basically being nurtured in such a way that they're thriving to live out whatever it is that the family is basically teaching them, whatever it is, you know. Even when you talk about how innocent children come here, everybody as a child, you know nothing when you come into the world. So there's a period of time where the brain is extremely um, receptive to anything that's being taught. So therefore, if a child, and they say up to the age of 3, that is, it says it is full force development. Every single thing that they see, you know, they may try to mimic, they may try to, you know, say, do whatever. So therefore, it's very important that that children are exposed early on to good stuff. Early on. Not later on, but early on. I'm going to see if I can pull that up. Good morning, Kiwanis. You want to make sure that what they're seeing is also what they can carry out and maybe later on do. So if children are taught kindness, they will learn to be kind. If they're taught love, they will learn to be loving. If they're taught peace, they will learn to be peaceful. But if all they see is, you know, and hear is cussing and fussing and fighting and constant, you know, what I would call noise, high energy, low productivity in terms of achieving anything that's worthy. Good morning, Jamila. Achieving anything that's worthy, that all those things say that they will be caught, trapped, kept in memory of a child. So therefore, you try as you're rearing children to expose them to the best things, you know, so that they hear love, they see love, they know love, they see kindness. You know, they'll just, you know, basically do the same thing. They will be kind. You know, my mother said I gave away everything I ever had. She constantly would say that. She said, "Don't go to Sandra. Sandra's going to give you away." And I would always have this thing about when we would go to the store and I could get my little candy, you know, and I'm gonna date myself. When I had the little candy, and the little candy would be so many pieces of candy for 25 cents. Well, if I got 25 cents worth of candy, I would have it. I could have that same candy for 2 weeks. Cause I felt it like it was gold. It was better than the money. How stupid was I? But what happened is that my brothers and sisters would come to me and they would ask me for the candy. Well, I enjoyed giving it to them too, so I would give it to them. My mother says, "See, now you don't have any candy." Well, I had some, but I just didn't have as much as I could have had. You know, I said, I'm trying to keep my teeth, but I didn't know that when I was little. The last letter in kin is nucleus. And why did I put nucleus in there? Because the nucleus talks about it being central and most important part of an object, a movement, a group, or forming the basis for its activity and growth. So therefore, I felt that was vital, you know, that when you really look at the nucleus of anything, of any family, you a lot of times can talk about you're looking at the matriarch, the patriarch, you know, you're looking at the great aunt, you're looking at, you know, mama, grandmama, you're looking at somebody that became the pillar of information, the pillar of wiseness, the pillar of content, the pillar of peace, the pillar of praise, the pillar of prayer. They knew everything to provide in terms of keeping the legacy of the family moving forward. And you know, I always remember my grandmother, she lived with us for most of my childhood and early adult life until she moved to Detroit with my mother's other sister, my auntie. So I knew what my grandmother's love was. I knew what her traditions was. And as you probably know, I was the one that was constantly asking the questions. So grandmother, why? And she would, she like my mother would tell me to go sit my behind down. But I always had that inquisitiveness with them. Because why? Because I hoped to pass it on. Because I knew that eventually they would pass on, but I needed to pass it down on what they told me so I could pass it on to my child and my child would pass it on to her children, so forth and so on. And that's basically that's what kin is all about. Is how you would take what has become, it may be tradition, it may be ritual, it may be the love, the kindness, the joy, or even understanding what the pain was, to pass it on so that your offspring know. Therefore, the legacy goes on as to what you lived through, what you've been through, as a member of a family. As each person leaves the family and they go on to glory, what happens? Did you get their stories down? Did you know how to do their sweet potato pie? Did you know how to make their best 1, 2, 3, 4 cake? Do you know how to make macaroni and cheese dressing? All those things that really talk about what grandmother or your mother used to do, and how you learned, on your own or by them, as to form a what I would call a connection, a kinship, to give to your offspring. That is kin. All those things talk about kin. But anyway, the nucleus is also the core of things. It's the center, it's the heart, the nub, the hub, the middle. It's the focal point. It's the pivot. It's the eye. It's the crux, and it's the midpoint. Good morning, Candace. How are you? All those things talk about the middle, understanding that the nucleus is at the core, the center of families. Families always have a nucleus, and sometimes it may switch as to who is the main person, people in your family they would go to. My mother sometimes became the black sheep because she was the outspoken one, but we would still go around family. We'd still go around family, and she wasn't but about that big and that wide, but she still would say her piece. She still would get her piece, and she went to sleep at night and slept all night. Why? Because she let it go. She would release it on what she felt an issue was. But then when I started going around my aunts and uncles, I saw they did the same thing, so I understood it. So just being around family gave me more understanding of my own mother. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to cherish all that you're going to get from family. And that's why I thought this weekend, by, it being a holiday weekend, it's usually commemorative of you being with a lot of family and friends. I just thought it would be a good time to really talk about what our kin are, and how kin makes us who we are. And some of us, in spite of it, we don't like some things. It doesn't matter. We still have family. And the people that don't have family, they form what I call their own families. They form them. They find a way to have somebody else be close to them, be kind to them, be loving to them, be caring about them. Those are also families. It's not the original kin that they might have been born into, but let's face it. Sometimes the original kinship that we're a part of it may not be the right fit for us. We just were born there. We were born to them, but we didn't stay with them. We went elsewhere. Good morning, Kishan. Good morning, Joan. And so we end up being a part of another person's family. And to me, when you are loved by others that are not your family, that's important. That's important. And sometimes that says even, that becomes like chocolate syrup and whipped cream and a cherry on top. The fact that somebody else loved you, somebody else outside of family cared about you, wanted you to be a part of their family, and I have several people like that. I mean, my daughter and I, we live here in Florida. We have no family here. When we came in the late 80s, my husband was in the military. And the military, I tell you, has always been like kin to me, because some of the same people that I met when we lived in Italy are still my friends today. They were here supportive for me after my husband passed away. They helped me with my daughter when I originally did not know how to braid hair. But all those things change. You end up learning that kin doesn't have to be just your family. Kin is all families. It's any family that you could be a part of. And so I look at kin as being a connection, a way to go to be involved with whomever, that has opened up their heart, their arms, sometimes their space, you know. In fact, when we left Italy, I was trying to earn enough what they called hours and service for the federal system to come back and have, spousal employment preference. It didn't work. I mean, it did, but it took me 3 years for it to finally work for me. And that's because I was just persistent and kept going back. But initially, it didn't work. But the people actually the woman that I stayed with, her name was Claire Lebling. She's a lovely woman. I love her, love her, love her. Haven't heard from her in years. Hope she's well. But I stayed with her, in Catania, out on a beautiful piece of land that had like a veranda. It had beautiful views of the water. I mean, I lived it up. I lived it up. And she offered that to me like family would, at no cost. She just wanted me to stay and get my time in. Now, that was something that she offered. So sometimes we don't even know who is going to love us, who is going to care about us. It may or may not be our family, but it may just be somebody with open arms, open heart, open mind about just inclusion, bringing you into their fold, bringing you into their family, into their kindness, into their love. To me, that is just so important. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, Tamir. And so I benefited greatly from just her love like that. And I remember crying when I left her because I felt like she had, and she didn't look like me. I'm going to tell you that right now. She did not. She was just a loving person, just a kind person. And so you can't always look at the color of one's skin and know what they truly will or will not do. And so I try not to lump people in big, what I would call areas to say that they would do this based on their color or they would do that based on their color. What I do is I take people one person at a time. Yes, I've been discriminated against. Yes, I've been called bad names. However, it doesn't define me. I don't take it on. I just know that they have had some experience that says and has supported the concept that that's all right. It's not all right. It's not all right to mistreat people or use language which certainly elevates you and denigrates them. It's just wrong. It's wrong no matter who is doing it. But I understand it. I understand it. And so my love for Claire was evident. We both cried when it was time for me to go. She was just that good to me. And I tried to be as good as I could to her and to anyone that has opened up themselves to letting me be a small portion of their lives. And that's it. That's it. That could be, so I would say you could have connected kin by inheritance and bloodline, or you could form your own kinship with just people that just love you. And I have several people here in Pensacola that they just love me and I love them. They're like family. Something going down, they're going to get here. For instance, I have some people, the Hemphills, Marshall. There's just a whole bunch of people that have just taken an interest in me, making sure that I'm not alone on holidays. Although this one, it's okay. We in pandemic, okay? But for the most part, they've just taken an interest into who I am. Even my girlfriend, Jackie Holly, same thing. They just love me. They love how I'm doing and where I'm at and in my life, in my heart, in my health. They're looking after me. When I was diagnosed with cancer, they came. They were right here. They went to the hospital with me. They took shifts. They stayed there with me. When you talk about, good morning, OJ, good morning, Trisha, good morning, Virginia. All those things just really fed me well, to just let me know that people will love you. People will care about you. Even if they are not your kin, they will make themselves, okay, your kin from another mother, okay? They will make it. They will make you feel like you're important, that you're worthy, that you're necessary. To me, kin is all that. It's all that, and it doesn't have to be your birth transition of getting here. It talks about who can be all of that. Because if you add a D to kin, you have kind. I love it. You add a D to kin, you have kind. And I started out going to do kind today, and I said, no, we have to do kin. I'm going to back out a letter. However, if you have kin and you have kindness through them, then you know what I'm talking about. Or you have friends and they're like your kin. Like, I'm quite sure some of you have, girlfriends, male friends, female friends that you're close to. That something goes down. You tell them they're right there. You don't even have to worry. They're going to beat the ambulance to the hospital. They're going to beat, somebody else saying prayer for you because they're going to put up the prayer. They're going to be there, and even if you needed money, good morning, Marion. Even if you needed money, they're there for you. Those are good friends. Those are good friends, but they're also what I would call the new form of kin. The kin, because we're in a society now where everybody is everywhere. We're all over the country. My mother had 10 kids and we lived in 5 or 6 different states. And I stayed in New York as long as I could, but once I married and we moved overseas and came back, good morning, Sean, my little nephew up in Atlanta. When we moved overseas and coming back, we had choices we had 3 choices where we could go. And one was Jacksonville, it was Pensacola, or we could go up to New York. I didn't want to go back to New York. I had lost my place. See, New York is one of those dog-eat-dog, states. You have to get in. Good morning, Maurice. You have to get in where you fit in. And I had a good job when I left New York, but it had probably, years where I'd worked up to that position. I couldn't go back to that position. It was already filled. So, you have to talk about, sometimes you have to think out your life ahead of time. And then my family was kind of scattered. Mommy was getting older, but I still had brothers and sisters that were right there near her. So I was okay and comfortable. And she wanted me, to make my own decision about where I wanted to live. And so sometimes you have to realize that you have to make decisions that don't involve your family. And so you have to form a new nucleus of a family, a new incorporation, a new known to you. All of those have to do with your kin. The new kinships you form, they're yours. They're yours. And you form them for whatever the reason. For whatever reason you can form a kinship. So anyway, that was my discussion today. I didn't want to hold you too long because I know it's a holiday weekend and I want you to be involved with your kin if you have some. And you can deal with them today and still socially distance yourself, but enjoy your opportunity to do that. So my first question today is, and I hope you have pen and paper, and I hope you'll write these down, and I hope you are journaling. I have my Corona, I'm covered, Corona Chronicles, so I have mine. And so I write things in my different journals, and I have a journal for when I'm thinking of a new thought to discuss. And I also have a journal when I'm, working on my books, or whatever it is I'm doing. I do journal quite a bit. So first question is, who are your people? Who are your people? Who's your kin? Okay. And the reason I ask that is, are they family of bloodline or are they friends? Okay. Doesn't matter. Who are your people? Who are they? And are they your kin? And it says, is it by ancestry or by heritage? Or is it by just absolute friendship? Okay. And sometimes friendships can be the best new family, the new nucleus, the new known to you, Question number 2, who do you fit in your chain? Who do you fit in your chain? And then where are you in that chain? Who do you fit in your chain? And the other thing is, if in terms of your own, family lineage, where are you in the chain? So that's two questions. Where are you in the chain? How and who's in your chain? Okay, and where do you fit in the chain? Are the oldest, the youngest, the baby of the family? Where was your incorporation into the family? You know, usually they say that, I think it's according to um, Erickson. It was talking about the family and how folks fit in the family, and I think they always talked about the hero, the lost child, and basically the baby, the saved. You don't really have to worry about them. They're going to do what they want to do because they're the ones on the end. But it always talked about, are you the hero? Are you the lost child? Did you move away and never called anybody? Write it down. And the last question, do you know all the things you need to know from your matriarch and patriarch to pass on the information? Do you know all the things you need to know from the matriarch and the patriarch? And it doesn't mean that the original matriarch and patriarch hasn't moved on to glory. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, in the event that they have, is there somebody else that has a lot of the family information stored? So if it's stored in them, you need to store some of it in you. Ask questions. Try to get down to the bottom of things. I didn't know for years, how, because we were little, so we never asked questions about the different families, because there were Sweats, Evans, and Gary. So I'm even helping my nephew right now. So I'm a Gary, okay? But the Sweat was my mother's first marriage. Evans was my mother's second marriage, and I'm the Gary, which is on the end. But we never knew much about it because, well, one, they were old enough. By the time I came along, they were old enough to be my parents. So I didn't know much about them. Yep. Yeah, same. Some are the black sheep. You better believe it, Maurice. That's right. There's some of the black sheep. They go off, or they're always considered to be the one that might be, troublesome, might have a problem. Something's going on with them. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. That's right. But anyway, when I ask about the patriarch and matriarch, I just like to know the tradition, with the beautiful code. I like that too. It says, the family, knowing the matriarch and patriarch's information means that you can carry on tradition. It means you can carry on tradition. I don't know if any of you have gone through Ancestry.com and started looking up your family. I did pretty good on my mother's side. I had trouble with my dad because my dad, his last name was Gary, but his mother's last name was Williams. And it looks like I found out when she got married. So apparently she wasn't married to Gary. Couldn't find any information on that. But she was married to a Williams. But they didn't change my father and his sister's names. They never changed their last name. So they remained Gary. So I'm wondering if I'm located, and I'm hoping one day Mr. Willie Gary, if he sees this, will say, hey, that's my kin. Maybe give me some money. He's a famous lawyer. I'm just letting y'all know. But anyway, I haven't written them yet. But, I need about another 2 books behind me and maybe an interview. And maybe he'll say, well, I need to check our bloodline and see, are we married? Are we related? But anyway, that would certainly be a rise, just to say that more people are connected just because they chase back their lineage. So I think it's good if you ask your folks questions. As long as you can, ask them, write down the information, start doing what I would say an assessment, an investigation of your own family. And it says, do you have a family reunion every 2 years? And I always used to think we never had but one. All the years that we were around, we only had one. And I remember we had it, started in Detroit, and then my aunt, my mother's cousin, had a place in Windsor, Canada, some small little area. We have a lot of Williams from Detroit. Wow, I might be related, huh? But anyway, they had she was well off, so she had a beautiful home, and she had a cottage, a beautiful, beautiful cottage in Canada. And and I'll give you some little history. My aunt's my excuse me, my mother's cousin was so light skinned that she passed. And so her husband was a medical doctor, an MD. And I don't know if he ever knew that well, eventually he had to because her parents were a little bit more brown, but they were also light skinned black people. And the interesting thing about them is that they lost track someplace with the daughter, and the daughter somehow or another, in as she was getting on in years and developed dementia, she literally had the people from her church, they kept going to the hospital, and they had her sign paperwork, and they had her sign away all of her possessions. So her mother and father, which were our great aunts, didn't get anything. And everything went to the church, including the house they lived in, the properties that they had in Canada, and money in the bank. So, that'll let you know that sometimes it's good to know your lineage. It's good to know your background. It's good. And sometimes we don't. We don't know it. We don't ask any questions. We just let it be. But I ask questions as long as my mother could understand and hear me, and I would always write things down. And to me, that's the beauty of having somebody that you can ask questions of. So if you have folks, ask questions of them. Ask them of any of them, you know. I even ask the younger ones because they may have some wisdom. They may have heard something you didn't hear. Why? They were younger and they stayed around longer. But just ask the questions. So those are that's my session for today, which is just talking about kin, your relatives, and this is a weekend to be with relatives if you are practicing small social gatherings. I certainly say go ahead and do it. But the kin is the obvious thing that you've known them. You've known them. You are incorporated into the union of kinship, be it actual bloodline or through friendship. And then, of course, you understand what the nucleus is of that union, that family, the gathering, the group, the people that are all assimilating under one name. Someone said someone of the cousins called me for family information. One of my cousins did research on our grandparents' side. She forwarded it to some before I can't even see the rest. But I understand that's true. She didn't check it, so I don't know what you meant to say on the rest of it because I don't know if it'll pop it up. Okay. Oh, before she passed. Okay, good. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Finding out as much information about people before they pass is good. It's always good. Good morning, Miss Rosie. Sometimes we let time go by and we don't do all that we should do in terms of being vigilant about asking questions. And I know life is just so busy. It's really, really busy. Even during pandemic, we can find things to be all in our head. But to me, if you ask some questions about somebody who may eventually lose the ability to remember what's in their head, then that's it. That's what you should certainly look at focusing on, which is a way forward for the family, for the kin, to have an understanding about what you all have been through. I did know that once I went back far enough, I did find out, some of our slave information. And I think I was able to get us back to like 1860. That's how far I was able to get back. But and once I finish these other books, I'm going to start writing on that, So legacy is funny. Kin is wonderful if you have it. But if you don't have it, create it. Create your own. Make your own family. Make your own kinship. And then enjoy it. Not only ask questions, but, do things that form your own legacy. Sometimes we have to make it up as we go. I certainly suggest that. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful, and safe July 4th. do something special for somebody else. Help somebody, even if it's by a phone call. Maybe you can drive and hang something on their door with, maybe some candy that won't melt, okay? But some gesture of kindness would be good that you would do this weekend. And I thank you. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you Monday. I love you. Bye-bye.